Hi, I'm Benjamin Hill with Mission Physical Therapy. Another tradition I'd like to talk about today is the tradition behind squatting and lunging. This will be a good one for most of you, I hope. There's quite a bit of good research, and before I get into much of that at all, let's just consider the typical squat form. Usually when somebody lifts an object, a heavy object, most people know to keep their back straight and to use their legs to lift. But what you end up having happen is the back is held in a hyperextended position that increases the tension of the muscles in the low back and increases the compression forces on both the facet joints, or the joints of the spine, and the discs. It further puts the knees in a position where they buckle, where there's a lot of what we call an anterior shear of the knee joint, or quad dominance in those quadricep muscles, meaning the quads are dominating or providing the majority of that lifting force, and you're not getting your glutes involved. It's rare that you would see somebody move in such a way on a football field at the start of a sprint. A basketball player going to jump, or a volleyball player going to jump, people would not be in that position playing volleyball, speed skating, playing tennis, you name it, just about any sport. You just don't see that position. You primarily see that position, and where I think that positioning comes from, that type of body mechanics comes from Olympic weightlifting and the style of lifting done in CrossFit and in gyms all over the country. Now, if you are lifting with something above your head, you don't want to bend forward. But in real life, when do we lift above our head that way? When do we hold objects above our head and squat down to put them down or to pick them up again? We don't. We typically carry things out in front, and that changes everything. You know, when you consider picking up something that's heavy, you want to bow more heavily through the hips, still keeping the back straight, but allow the hips to get involved, where you've got those powerful glutes to aid in the lift or in putting an object down. And you will reduce the compressive forces on the spine, the muscles of the low back will relax, and that anterior shear and quad dominance about the knees will reduce significantly, because you're just sharing that load with the hips. This goes so much against tradition, though, that I've had my patients tell me they come back from the gym and personal trainers there are correcting them. And maybe they're just, you know, again, going back to tradition. I think they're well-meaning, but I don't think they're aware of the research, nor are they just considering the logic behind what they're instructing. Again, the only place you see that type of form is in the gym. You do not see it on the football field, on courts. You don't see it with any sort of functional movement. This is true for lunging as well. In fact, that stance that football players take along the line, or that speed skaters get into, is more of a lunge. And they are also forward bent at the hips, still with their backs straight or relatively straight, and lacking that sheer force across the knees. So this is a great way to save your back and to save your knees. The research is building quite a bit. There are a lot of different researchers I'm aware of in the United States and other places that are teaching this principle, and have been able to show with pressure sensing needles placed in the spine or at the knee, showing how pressure reduces when using this form, and more easily with biofeedback electrodes on the muscles of the quads and the glutes and the low back, showing a more shared effort between those areas when people use a more hip dominant way of moving, or glute loading, or excuse me, I should say, when people use a more hip biased way of moving, or a glute loading technique to their lifting, their squatting, and their lunging. We'll talk about this some more in an upcoming video. I'm Benjamin Hill with Mission Physical Therapy.